All right, take it away, Kai. Thank you.
Well, I gotta figure out how to make this full screen. There we go. Now I can see it. All right. So my name is Kai Davis. I'm presenting from Career Services at UCA today on resumes. So we're going to talk a lot about those, and I'll go through the presentation. But if you have any questions throughout, feel free to click the little raise hand button, or at the end we're going to have time for questions. So you're welcome to save them all there too. I've learned with resumes, there's a lot of I can do an overview, but a lot of the really details come in when students ask certain questions, because every resume is going to be a little bit different. Every resume is going to be tailored and have certain skills they're trying to put on there and highlight. So if you have specific questions, yeah, like I said, feel free to ask those either throughout the presentation or at the end, either one. But we do resumes. That's our main focus. I feel like that's the thing I do the most. And we do resume reviews. So if you ever need your resume review, your resume reviewed, you can send those to us. I know I've done a few of those already for you. Ms. Sheila sent me some of those, I think on Friday, and I was looking over those yesterday and today a little bit, and I'm going to be sending out some emails with just some revisions made to those, some ways that we can improve those resumes. Most of it ends up being formatting. A lot of the content is there. It's just showing how to highlight those in a professional manner. And so if you sent those into Ms. Sheila, you'll be getting an email from me tomorrow with details about your resume. And so the first question I think we need to address is, what is a resume? I'm assuming most of you already have a resume or have had one in the past, but a resume is a brief summary of your education, skills, abilities, and experience. It's going to help get you that position that you want. So a lot of times when people are hiring, they're looking for certain skills or certain educational backgrounds, certain requirements, and your resume is that introduction of who you are to them. And so it's going to direct the interview conversation. They may have questions about your resume, questions about experiences that you've had. They're going to want you to elaborate more on those, on the summary of things that you've put on there, on your experience, on your skills. They're going to ask you to talk more about those in the interview. But it is an introduction to who you are. As I mentioned, a lot of them are going to be different, so everybody's resume is going to be slightly different. But as well, you may have a different resume for different jobs you apply for. All right, so there's going to be different skills. Not every job is going to have the exact same skills. So you're going to have to tailor that resume to the position for which you're applying. And this is going to be a tool that's used to market you as the best fit for the job. It's not the only tool. It's just one of the tools. So hopefully you've been networking. Hopefully you're talking to people already. That's kind of a tool that you're using. Then you're going to submit a resume. You're going to submit your application, and then you're going to go through the interview, which is a big tool as well. And so all those play together to help you get that position. The purpose of the resume is actually to secure an interview. It's not to get a job. It is an introduction of who you are, right? It's a summary overview, but it's not going to get you the position specifically. You're going to have to go through that interview as well. They're going to want you to elaborate on those skills. You can make yourself look great on paper, but you're going to have to do that in an interview as well to secure that job. So you'll have to go through the interview, but that's just going to expand and elaborate on things about the resume. So your resume should relate to who you are, what you know, what you have done, and what you would like to do in the future. And so again, it's tailored to a position. That's going to be what you would like to do in the future. It's going to have on there who you are, write some of the skills that you have, the abilities, the experiences you've had that have developed those skills. So that's going to be the what you know and the what you have done section as well. And so we're going to walk through the resume step by step with each section. So we're going to talk about the objective, your education section, experiences, kind of how you can add those things in. In the beginning, right, getting started formatting, I would say you just need to determine what you would like to do. What are some specific positions that you're going to want to do going into, whether it's, if you're wanting to do straight programming, all that stuff, that's great. But like maybe there's some jobs, there's some other things that you want to do, some, specific positions. There may be some differences between positions, even if they are just, programmers or programming. So determine what you would like to do in that aspect, and then kind of look back at what you've done, right? You're going through the Arkansas Coding Academy now. So look back at the experiences you've had through that, some of the projects you may have worked on, some of the skills that you've developed, Look back through past experiences, other jobs that you've worked. There's skills that you've built through that as well, and so you can add those to the resume. I usually tell students, make a rough draft of everything you can, add everything to the resume. You can always take it off and tailor it, but just when starting off, definitely just add as much as you can. And then that's when you can plan and weigh every word. Make sure you're not repeating information. I know some students I've seen, they'll have some type of honor or recognition they've received. They'll put it under the education section, and then also in like an extracurricular section as well. And it's not necessary. It only needs to go in one place on the resume. So things like that you'll catch as you are reading through and you're planning how exactly you want to say everything on the resume. For overall formatting, I mentioned that this is some of the biggest issues I've seen with resumes, just in general. Formatting, it'll be slightly different in some areas, and you want it to be as consistent as possible throughout the entire resume. So same font size, style, spacing, all throughout the resume. There are very slight differences that you can use, like in your experience section, you may use bullet points to list your job descriptions, and in your education section, you may not use bullet points, and that's okay. You don't have to use bullet points at the whole resume, but the font size, the spacing between everything, that's still going to be consistent. You may use columns to display your skills because it fits better. Right? If you're just listing certain coding skills you have or certain languages that you know, you may list it in columns because they're short and they're, C++ or Java or Python or things like that are just quick and easy to list. So you may have to have columns in that section, but the rest of the resume doesn't need to be in columns. So you're going to have small differences like that, but overall it's still going to be pretty consistently formatted. Preferably need to be one page if you can be. Reference page is a second page. So the references should always be on their own page. You don't need to write, a tag at the bottom of your resume that says references upon demand. It's kind of assumed. And so when you submit your resume, if you're going to submit references with that, it needs to be its own page. So that will save you some room. But like I said, it needs to be preferably one page. If you have more experience, you have other things that you've done, a lot more work experience, then it can go over to one page, right? It can be two. It just depends on what all information is relevant to the position. And so a lot of the students I get to work with are usually seniors coming out. They haven't had a ton of work experience. They haven't, they've just got their one bachelor's degree. So that's why I say typically it's going to be preferably one page. All right, it's a summary. It's short, sweet, to the point. I'm telling them usually, hey, don't fill up the resume with stuff that's not necessary. But if you have, if you've worked a job for 5 or 10 years and you had a lot of experience through that, and you've got RSL Coding Academy experience you want to add on there as well, then that's going to be something that may flow over to 2 pages, and that's okay. There's certain ways you can emphasize certain things on the resume. So you can bold, italicize certain items if you want to bold like your education, or if you want to bold certain projects or the title of your job, you can do that. If you want to underline dates, you can do that for key items, and that'll help make things stand out instead of all being just one consistent format the whole way through. You can make certain things stand out because you don't want, dates or certain aspects of the resume to get lost within it, right? If someone's scanning the resume just quickly, you want them to see certain things, right? Where you went to school, what, coding languages you learn. You want that to stand out. What your experience has been, how long you've worked there, things like that. And so there's ways to do that without, without drawing too much attention and making it too inconsistent with the rest of the resume. You can still do that. So I mentioned the content. We've got the objective. Contact information first, how they can get a hold of you. It's going to be at the top of the resume. Then you've got the objective, education, skills, professional experience, awards and activities, and then professional references. And again, that last one is going to be on its own page. So we're going to walk through each one of these at the moment, just step by step. But I guess I forgot about this slide. Some things to avoid on your resume. Templates they can be good. There's a lot of templates that are not great. And so I usually say to stay away from templates. They can be difficult to work with, challenging. They're formatted for basic resumes, just getting started off, just so like, hey, this is what maybe could look like. So I usually say stay away from templates because once you add a lot of content, you're developing that more, you're trying to format it, it can be challenging to work with. If you're moving some things around, or if, you're trying to add more words than that space was expecting, then it messes with the formatting. So I usually say, tell students, start from your own thing, build your own template from scratch. It's okay to look at a template and then, build your own. But try to stay away from templates if you can. There's also a lot of templates that have color, they have borders around them, and that's just not appropriate. It's not necessary on the resume. And that's actually, I think, at the bottom of this. Yeah,
Wow.
photographs, charts, art, borders, and colored text. Those things aren't necessary on the resume. And so they're wanting to hire you for your skills and your experience, not for your design skills on a resume. Some other things that would be necessary to avoid: high school information, salary and geographical preferences, I, me, and my statements. They know it's your resume, so you could just start with, a strong verb and go, and write the rest of the job description through that. Reason for leaving previous employer isn't necessary. I mentioned photographs, charts, art and borders, health, physical description, age, race, religion, sex, and national origin. None of that needs to be on the resume. It's not necessary. Again, it's a summary of why you're a good fit for the job. So your skills, your education, your experience, things that would really help you to do a good job in that position. And then a GPA, if you have below a 3.0, or if you had a below a 3.0, isn't necessary on the resume. If you have above it or had above it, definitely feel free to put that on there. That's going to make you stand out. And now we're going to walk through the rest of the different aspects of the resume. So the contact information, it's right at the top. There's different ways you can do it. You could have the name with the full line of your address, and then below that, the email and phone number on the same line if you wanted to save some space. Or you could do it this way, right? You could have your address, then with your city, state, and zip code, your phone number below that, and then your email address. That's a good way to list it. Your name needs to be one of the biggest things on the page. So it needs to stand out. It's usually a couple font sizes bigger than the rest of the resume, but everything else is going to be consistent after that. But that just reminds them, hey, this is your resume. It makes it stand out quickly so they can, they see it. And then a word of advice: always use a professional email. If you don't have one yet, I encourage you to make one. It's definitely great. It's very important to have a professional email when you're, applying for positions. You want them to take you as a professional, right? If you're applying for full-time positions, that's definitely important. So the career objective is something that is, I would say, highly debated on resumes. A lot of y'all may have heard that it's not necessary. I've heard that it's not necessary at times. Some people prefer the summary statement, and that can be good in its own right, depending on what else you're submitting with the application. For me, I like the career objective, and I'm going to explain why. I would say for each of you, if you've had other people tell you differently, decide what's best for you. Decide what all you're submitting with the resume and how helpful it could be, and then make a decision based on all of that. So for me, the career objective is good because students are usually going to submit a cover letter when they're applying to a position. So they're going to submit a cover letter talking about, maybe briefly introducing themselves, why they're interested in that position, some of their past experiences, highlighting things on the resume, and then, signing off at the end of that cover letter. So if you're doing that, you don't want your cover letter to repeat all of the information on the resume, and you want them to complement each other. And so the cover letter may highlight certain aspects of the resume, but it's not going to go into the depth the resume is going to go into. So it's going to be an even briefer or more brief introduction to the resume. And so if you're going to do that, the objective statement just tells them what you're applying for. It can be something simple like highly skilled IT professional seeking to obtain a so-and-so internship at ABC company. It's direct. It lets them know what position you're applying to. Hopefully it has the job title and the company in the objective statement as well. But it's short. It's one sentence, so it doesn't take up a ton of room. So a lot of people that do encourage a summary statement, the reason I usually say don't go with a summary statement and go with the objective over the summary statement is because of the cover letter. All right, if you have the cover letter, the summary statement is going to repeat basically all of what you just said in the cover letter. So I usually say go with the objective statement over that. If you decide cover letter is not what you're going to write and you do want to include a summary statement, it's going to be at the top. It's going to have a little bit more detail. It's going to mention probably some things about your skills, and it's going to introduce your overall resume a little bit more. It's a more concise cover letter, and it goes to the top of the resume. And so I lean toward cover letter. You can say more, and then an objective statement on the resume. as opposed to saying just a little bit in the summary statement at the top of the resume. But again, there's going to be some differing opinions on that. And each company may be different. I mean, there may be some recruiters that prefer a cover letter. There may be some that don't need that. And they say, hey, just submit your resume. And in that case, you maybe want to include a summary statement on that. I was in a resume workshop actually this morning, and they encouraged a summary statement. So it's really funny to hear all the different views of it. But yeah, I would say just decide what best is for you in that situation, in the depending on the position you're applying for. For the next section, right under your objective or your summary statement, is going to be your education. Typically, the most important things go at the top of the resume. And so for most people I get to work with, education sections next. If you have been working in the field for years and you decide to switch careers or switch something and your experience is actually a little bit more important to you, that can go at the top. That would be next. But for most people I get to speak with, for most students, it's going to be the education section next. It's going to describe your academic preparation. And so it's going to list your highest or your most recent degree first chronologically. And so you can list the Arkansas Coding Academy and some of the classes you may have taken or some of the skills that you've developed through that in this section. There may be a better way to do that, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, you're going to list the school that you went to, the location of the school. So University of Central Arkansas, Conway, Arkansas. You wanted to list the degree that you obtained, as well as the graduation date, and then the major. So an issue I see here a lot of times are students kind of mix the major and the degree together. And so they may say something like Bachelor of Management or Bachelor of Marketing or Bachelor of Business Management, which isn't necessarily correct. So you need to list the correct degree and the major that you had for that. The next section after the education section is typically skills and languages. Again, that's another thing it's shorter section. It's brief. You can put it at the top, and it's very important. It's specifically, though, for hard skills, things such as computer skills, any kind of foreign languages that you speak, or any language other than English that you speak. Technical languages, those all apply. So C++, I mentioned Python, Java, SQL, HTML, things like that. If you are proficient in those, or you know those languages or have those skills, list those on the resume, especially if that position that you're applying to ask for those things. So the big difference between skills that I get here and some challenges I face when I've been trying to work with students is students always list soft skills in the skills section, which aren't necessary to list there. So hard skills, luckily for all of you guys in the Coding Academy, you're going to have a lot of hard skills. You're going to have things that you can easily list there. So I mentioned those are computer skills, foreign languages, math skills, programming skills. They're specific. They're quantifiable. All right, if I was a hiring manager and you came to me and said, hey, I know how to code in C++, or I know Python, and I can work in those things, I know I can give you a task and you can complete it, or at least you can work with it a little bit. There may be a slight learning curve. You may learn you don't need to learn how we do it. You may have some questions, but you're going to be able to showcase those skills and work with that. A lot of the times these can be demonstrated with a degree or a certificate or examples of work in some cases. But for soft skills, that's not the case. They're unquantifiable attributes. They can't be proven. They need to be demonstrated through work style and approach. So these skills typically are going to go in your experience section. So skills such as communication, leadership, teamwork, creativity, conflict resolution, skills such as that are going to go throughout the experience section, because how do you define communication skills? Right? What does that mean exactly? Everybody may have a different opinion about what that really means. So for me, communication skills includes public speaking skills, because in my position, that's part of it. Right? You've got to learn to speak with classes and talk to students. Not only talk to students one-on-one, but speak with classes and give presentations. I may include that. Other people may not. They may just consider communication skills as one-on-one or small group communication skills. They may not consider written communication skills when they say that. So it's really hard to define that, and there's not like a universal, definition. Everybody may have a slightly different opinion of that. So when you just say or list communication or leadership or teamwork, it's hard to know what that applicant means by that on their resume. So it's best to list it in the experience section where you can actually define that a little bit more. So instead of saying just communication skills under the skills section, you could say, in my current position as an assistant director of career services, I could list in my experience section, communicate with students in a one-on-one basis, as well as, present or give presentations to classrooms. Right, and that's going to showcase, hey, I work with students one-on-one, but I also give presentations. And then, of course, in the interview, I'm going to expound on that. I'm going to talk more about that skill. And I'm going to give examples of that. I'm going to tell stories about that skill and how I've used that skill in the past. And that's going to really exemplify that skill and show them that I have that. And that's the best way to do that. So that's kind of the challenge with skills. But remember, the skills section is specifically for your hard skills. Everything else is going to go under your experience, which leads us to the experience section. This is typically professional experience if you have that. If you don't have a ton of professional experience, you can list it as, you list other experiences. So if you've had major projects that you've worked on that showcase those skills, or those, if you've developed a project, maybe it's through the Coding Academy, you've had a big project that you've worked on, you can list that in your experience. If you've worked on a team with that project, or you develop teamwork skills to that, you can list that. This is where you're going to really expound on a lot of those skills that you have. But if you do have professional experience, it's great to list here. And you want to list this in reverse chronological order, so with the most recent first, and then work your way backward. If you had internships, self-employment, volunteer work, you can also list that here. If you've had professional experience or full-time, part-time experience, and then also volunteer work, and you want to split those into two different categories, you can do that as well. And so there's different ways to list your experience section. I usually tell students after you have the education and the skills, everything else is pretty much experience. Whether it's volunteer work, maybe an organization on campus, if you were involved in anything, if you were, maybe you lead some type of organization, or you're part of an association, that can be experience in a way. But most of the time in the experience section, you're looking for professional experience. And besides the date right here that's messed up, I need to fix that in the PowerPoint. Everything else is consistently formatted. So you can see they list the job title below the company. They list the location out beside the company, and they list the dates out to the far right, kind of spaced out a little bit. They italicize and bold the job title, though. That makes it stand out on the page. I mean, if you were just skimming this page, looking over it quickly, you would see admin assistant and volunteer services intern. Those kind of pop off the page at you. For the experience, like the title of it, I mean, that's bolded and underlined, and that makes that stand out as well. And so maybe after you've submitted your application, the recruiter is looking at resumes, and they're just, hey, let me look at the experience section and see where these people have worked. And they're not going to read through them thoroughly. They're just kind of skimming to look for certain things. And that does happen a lot of the time. They're going to, want to see your experience section jump off the page. So they want to be able to find it quickly. Or maybe they're looking for your education section. They want to find that quickly. And so there's ways to do that. And I'll show you all an example resume as a full resume at the end of this as well, to make it kind of bring it all together. Awards and activities. This is experience as well. It's just more of experience, kind of part B. It's not quite as important as your main professional experience, but if you've received any academic awards, or maybe you've volunteered or done some other been involved with other organizations, you can list that in another section, awards and activities. I don't know what happened with these dates at the bottom. Sorry about all this, but these are supposed to be correctly formatted. But yeah, you can list the rest of your, stuff kind of at the bottom if you wanted just to have an extra section to say, hey, this isn't my main experience, but I have been involved with this as well. You can list that in an awards and activities section. So for this section, they've listed member of Delta Psi Theta Honor Society. Italicized is the job title, or the title of their membership, right? They were a member of that organization. They were a volunteer for student support staff. They were on the dean's list, and so that's listed as an award under there as well. And then the last section, the part that goes on its own page, is the professional references. And I would say for these, you want to find people who can provide positive information about your work experience and skills. And if you can, diversify these. So don't just put, hey, this one person I used to work with, or these 2 or 3 people from the same job I used to work with. If you can, maybe you have someone from the coding academy that could be a reference for you. Maybe you have someone from your old job, or you do volunteer work and you can have someone from that also be a reference for you. If you can diversify your references, that's going to showcase even more about you, because it shows, hopefully, if they all give good references about you, that you're not just great as an employee, but you're also great as a student, or you were great when you were volunteering for an organization. If you can't do that, that's fine. Listing references is not the only way, right, to showcase your skills and everything. And so you can list the same, or 2 or 3 references from the same place if you don't have multiple other references. But if you can, I always encourage students to try and diversify their references. And then I would say have at least 3. There's been some jobs that I've heard students have applied to where you need 4 or 5 references. Some people only need 2. Usually I would say 3 is the sweet spot. If you need more, you can always go get more. But I would say at least have 3 ready to go when you're submitting an application. Some editing tips after you finish putting it all together. I would say if you're printing copies, let's say you're going to an interview, before you print those copies, or after you print the copies, check the quality, make sure there's no bleed marks, there's no jagged or crooked edges, make sure it's it's easy to read. So check the overall readability. Borders usually aren't a good idea. And so when you're submitting applications, if they use some type of applicant tracking system and it scans the resume, the border can mess with that a little bit. I've heard that can throw things off and it won't pick up all the content of the resume. And if it doesn't do that, then of course your resume doesn't actually get through to the next stage. It may filter you out and say, not a good candidate or something. So borders can mess with that. They're not necessary on the resume. After you run a spell check, visually edit the resume. This is very important. I mean, there may be something that's spelled correctly, but it's, the wrong word. And so you want to, or maybe there was an autocorrect that messed up for some reason. Definitely make sure you visually edit the resume. I've seen some parts of resumes where maybe even a small word was left out and it just never picked up on the autocorrect or on the spell check. And so, I've been able to point it out for students. If they had submitted it the way it would have been very bad for them. It would have, looked poorly on their part. So visually edit the resume. I usually tell students, meet with one of our staff members. I mean, we do this every day. We get to work with students, and we have all of our staff have been there for, at least 3 or 4 years. I think it's our youngest staff member's been there for 3 years. So we've been doing this for a while. Meet with us if you can. If you don't want to, there's other people. We know that we're not the only ones that review resumes. We're not the only ones that know how to review resumes or what a good resume is. If you have someone that works in a field or works for a company that can look over your resume before you submit it, that's great. Have them do it. I would usually say give it to 3 or 4 friends or family members that can review it and edit it as well. They may see things that someone else won't, or they may know, hey, this company looks for this aspect of the resume, make sure you have it on there. So definitely pass your resume around, have people look over it before you begin submitting it to companies and for positions. I mentioned there's a sample resume. We have this. So at the top, contact information, Bruce E. Bear. Below that would be obviously their address, their phone number, their email address. And then moving on, you have the objective, the education, the experience, skills, activities, and honors. And this is a good way to set it up. I mean, the education section out to the right on the side under objective would be the dates. Same for experience. You can see how they're kind of lined up there, even though there's not really text. It would be lined up. It would look, neat, professional. For the experience, it has bullet points. So does skills and activities and honors, but the education section doesn't. That's okay, right? Like I said, there's small parts of the resume that won't be consistent. But as for the overall font size, spacing, all of that, you can see is very consistent with this sample resume here. And you can do something similar. I mean, there's tons of example resumes we have on our website. 4 examples, I think. We have a resume packet, and I can actually show you how to find that. But that's most of everything for a resume. After this, we'll answer questions, but I want to give a word of warning. I give this to everyone I speak to. There are fraudulent jobs out there. I'm sure you may have seen some. So be aware when you're applying for jobs or if you're searching for jobs online. If you think that there's a job that maybe it has a vague description, or you just think, this sounds too good to be true, don't apply for it. Call the company, try to talk to someone to make sure it's like a real job. we've had some jobs come through that, like through our career services office, that really look fake. I mean, they do not look like they could be real. And so we'll call the people, we'll try to get in touch with them, and turns out they are real. The person just, they just didn't mean to, write the job description the way it was, where it was a little more vague or something about the job description they just weren't aware of. And so, we fixed it, made it where it didn't seem like it was a scam, and then, posted the job. So if you do see something that seems too good to be true, you can contact us. We can try to work through it with you, or you can contact them, try to contact them if you can. If they ever ask for like payment before you ever start working, or like any kind of like check of some sort, don't give it to them. The only time they'll ask for a check is usually after you've done an interview and been hired, and they want to do like direct deposit. But at that point, hopefully you'll know that it's a real job and not something that's fraudulent. So now I just want to open the floor to any kind of questions. I'm going to stop sharing this screen for now and share some other stuff with you. But do y'all have any questions about like specific resume stuff or things that you've seen on your resumes?
I mean, I've got a question. So I haven't even started college yet.
Okay.
Could I put my high school and the education?
Yes, you definitely can. I used to say that, and I forgot, because I forget that some people that haven't started college yet, that are going to the coding academy, coming out of high school and everything.
Yeah.
Yes. So typically when I say don't put high school information, I'm referring to people that are 3 or 4 years removed from high school.
Okay.
And so if you just came out, you're fine. That's really all the experience you've had. I mean, if you took that off, you don't have a resume. And so, yeah, that's totally fine to put that. Of course, coupled that with the coding academy, and you're going to, I think you could have a pretty good resume there.
Okay.
For people that have gone through college, they don't want to list their high school information, because employers are going to say, well, what have you been doing for 4 years? And then if you have been in the field, I don't know if any of y'all have been working for, 10 or 15 years at this point. But usually the rule of thumb is don't go more than 10 years back. So if you have experience that's over 10 years old, you don't need to put that on the resume anymore, unless you've been at the same company for 20 years. And then I guess at that point, I mean, you can list that.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Do you have any other questions at the moment?
Hey, Kai, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, this is Wesley Freeland. What's up, man? How you doing? Thanks for your time. This was a really good refresher on resume building, so I appreciate you coming in tonight.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I met Wesley actually my freshman year of college, so
Yep.
That's it's good to hear your voice.
Thanks, man, again.
You have any other questions at the moment?
Hi, this is Knowles Atkinson. I'm in the C#.NET part-time nights and evenings class. I kind of came in late to the meeting, so I apologize if you already talked about this and I missed it. But in terms of like the skills, obviously we're going to list the Arkansas Coding Academy, under education. Is there any kind of we just kind of list the various things that we learned in the class in terms of various technologies. I was just curious what previous Coding Academy graduates or software development people have listed on their resume, how they've organized it.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I started working with the Coding Academy just a few months ago. So I'm not sure what past participants have done. Ms. Sheila maybe could answer that for you, or Don, I believe, could answer maybe that a little bit more. But like, yeah, I mean,
I can pitch it. I can. The best comment I've seen, or the most glowing comment on a resume I saw, with regard to putting the Coding Academy in perspective, was on Cody Rickards. He works for Southwest Power Pool now. No, wait a minute. No, Cody had a good one, but it was Keith Wilson. That had a good description of what the Coding Academy was up front. So I'm pretty sure let Sheila and me put our heads together and make sure we've got the right resume. That I'm doing that from recollection. But we did have a resume that stood out, that several HR folks commented on as being clarity with regard to the Arkansas Coding Academy content. And then moving into past experience. Okay, Knowles?
Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, obviously the relative skill level of people who take this class is probably going to vary depending on, you know, how quickly you take to it and how much time you have to devote to it. But obviously none of us are going to be experts, you know, coming out of the class, even though we've learned a lot. So I guess we probably don't want to like over promise in terms of, you know, our proficiency in all these different things.
Yeah, true. And that won't be on your resume. I mean, your resume needs to be honest. But what is going to attract what's going to attract folks to, you know, someone at your level is, you know, that your experience and education, and then you layer on top that coding experience on top of domain expertise, and it suddenly becomes very attractive. So your resume and your approach is going to be different than someone who's, you know, younger coming into the job market with less experience. But there's a resume I want you to look at, Knowles. I owe you an answer.
Thanks, Don, and thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad y'all can help him a little more with that when it comes to like specifics. I would say like, yeah, whenever you're thinking about like the resume and going forward, I always try to put myself in the shoes of the employer, and I try to like thoroughly read through the job description and think, hey, what really are the skills they're looking for? And then you got to make sure those are on the resume. If you can do that, I think you've got a good chance to set yourself apart. But also don't think that the resume is the only tool, right? This is going to get me the interview and this is going to get me the job. The resume, yeah, the main purpose is to get you an interview, but networking is huge. Continue to talk to people, continuing to develop your skills. I've heard that a lot, like this COVID-19 stuff going on. We've talked to a few recruiters, and they said, you know, when they get to open back up and are able to hire again, one of the things they're looking at is, hey, how did you spend this time? Were you still developing your skills? What was going on? And so, I mean, you guys have been doing that, which is great. But yeah, don't put everything on the resume, as in like all the weight on the resume to like get you that job. There's a lot of tools. Continue to work the process, networking, talking to people, seeing what jobs are open. I mean, I've seen networking work for many students, going from hearing about a job that wasn't even posted yet to like a job's been posted for a few months. They heard about it. They talked to someone, had a connection in some way, and their resume got moved, you know, to the top of the pile almost immediately and got an interview like within a day or two. So networking is huge too. But yeah, the resume is definitely important. I don't want to like downplay it, but I also don't want to like oversell it, because there are like a lot of tools that go into the job search, right? So there's the networking and then the interview itself. Obviously, if you get that far into the process, definitely be preparing for that and be ready to sell yourself in many ways. I'm going to show y'all one more thing. If I can, let's see. Okay. So here is our website. It's just uca.edu/career, or you can just go to uca.edu and search for career services. It'll take you here, and we have a resources page, which I think I sent Sheila at one point. Our resume packet was a little more tailored for the Coding Academy. So you may not even need this, but in case you did want to go get some more resources, we have our 50 standard interview questions, online mock interview practice. If you wanted to sign up for that and start practicing interviewing, you can do that online. Resume packet, this has everything I talked about tonight in it. So all of the presentation is condensed to like one full page of details, and then there's a list of helpful words. There's some example resumes. So if you wanted to look at some more examples, you could do this. I think, like I said, I sent one to Sheila, so y'all may have that or will be getting that sometime, that has more specifics tailored toward the Coding Academy with more, I guess, relatable skills, things like that in it. But I definitely wanted to show y'all that before I got off here. And there's one other thing, and if y'all have more questions, I can stay and answer them. But if y'all wouldn't mind, my boss has asked me to send out an evaluation to like just get some feedback on our presentation. And so I just put a link in the chat. If y'all wouldn't mind filling that out, we would greatly appreciate it. And y'all can do that now, or after this. I'm not really sure when y'all want to do that. But does anybody else have any questions right now?
Yeah, real quick. The link in the chat brings you to a page that you need permission. It says this form can only be viewed by users in the owner's organization.
Yeah, let me change that. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I knew I forgot something on that. All right, if you reload it, tell me if that will work.
Yes, sir. That's good to go.
Awesome. Thank you all for submitting that for me. Any other questions that you all have?
Also, can you talk to them about the alumni information?
Yes, I definitely can. I will share that with y'all as well. Let me go back to our website. So we have a website or a program that we use called Handshake. And I don't know if any of y'all have heard about it, but it's open to all students and alumni, and we consider Coding Academy alumni for us. And so you can go on and create a profile. If you go onto our website, there's a students and alumni tab, and it says, welcome to Bears for Hire, powered by Handshake. You can click that, and then creating an alumni profile is a link on there, and it takes you to the bottom of the page. It just kind of walks you through how to create a profile. But you can get on here, and that's how we do everything through Career Services as much as we can. So you can make appointments with our staff if you wanted a resume review, if you wanted just to ask questions about, the job search, or if you wanted to ask questions about, I'm trying to think, or like interviewing. You can do that. You can set up an appointment out through there. We post jobs on there. All of the jobs that we get notified of, we post on Handshake. A lot of them you can apply through Handshake, which is great. Some of them will redirect you to the company profile, the company webpage, but a lot of them you can do right through Handshake, which is really great. There's other resources too on there, and you can connect with other students from across the nation that have Handshake as well. Different universities use it. So it's a great profile. And so when Ms. Sheila sent me a list of all of your names. So if you go through and create a profile, then we will know and we'll approve you. Typically, there's an approval process after you create it. So yeah, you click on the sign up here, and then sign in with sign up here, sorry, in the right. And you just create your profile. I mean, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward stuff. But there's a lot of things you can do on there. If you begin and you create the profile and you're not sure what else you can do, you can contact our office and we can walk you through all the things that are available for you. And I end up working usually with all of the IT students. So anybody majoring in that, and then also anybody from the Coding Academy will work with me. So yeah, feel free to, and I'll actually put my email in here as well. Email me if you have any questions, or to give us a call at our office. Michelle, did I miss anything else from the last time I did this presentation? It's been a while, so I had forgotten.
This is Joseph Flimmer. It said we needed a .edu email to sign up. For the people that are in the Coding Academy, how are we supposed to sign up?
Was that for Handshake?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't necessarily. So I'm trying to. It says it on that webpage. Because were you reading it from my screen, or did you go to it yourself?
Your screen. My
okay.
bad.
So yeah, I think I clicked the wrong button. So it says on here, click sign in with your email. Below, yeah, so don't click sign up here in the top right.
Okay.
You click sign in with your email, and you can use a non-UCA email. I don't know why it was saying it on that one, because we have tons of alumni that use non-UCA emails and non.edus.
Okay,
that's
cool.
actually preferred for all of our alumni, just because they don't, even if you had .edu address, you don't have it forever, or that's what our IT department tells us. So yeah, you shouldn't need one. You should be able to create one regardless, just with your personal email. If you have a preferred email, you can use that.
Awesome.
Okay, I think you did cover for everything, and I will make available the packet that you had created for Arkansas Coding Academy for
Okay.
all the students, so that they can have a packet to walk away and look at and be able to go through. And if they have more questions, they can either direct them to you, because I think the packet had your information on there. So I'll definitely make sure I give them that.
All right, perfect. And I did just try the link to make sure you didn't need a .edu account. If for some reason says you need a .edu account, and then if you type a non.edu account, it still works. So I don't know why they have it on there.
Okay, cool.
Just type in and click next. It'll submit it, and then you just click I'm a student or alumni and kind of follow the rest of the instructions.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Well, Kai, I wanted to say thanks. This is Don. I wanted to say thanks and thank you to Sheila for putting all this together. She did all the hard work to make this happen. And everybody, you've all got my email. If you want to talk job hunts and job types and approaches, I'm a little over a year in the position and have a decent network going, and have seen folks succeed and folks with challenges. So contact me if you want to talk job hunting. And Kai, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate y'all letting me come speak to you guys, and I look forward to speaking with more of you in the future. Hopefully, if you need a resume review, and then, like I said, if you submitted your resume already to Miss Sheila, she had sent those to me, and so I'll get back to you tomorrow. And so I'll probably be talking to y'all a little bit more in the future. But thank you again.